things don't materialise. Things sort of may start and then just grind to a halt. You know, you speak to residents and they'll say to you, oh yeah, we've heard all this before. You know, Galleon's Housing 10 years ago told us that they were going to do this, X, Y and Z. None of that ever happened. So, you know, why should I believe you? Why should I believe you when you tell me that you care about what I want? Because I think that's something else as well, that again, that feeling of they just feel like things are done to them rather than done with them. So I just think it is that level of trust in getting people to actually believe what we're saying. Also, I think another challenge is just trying to find people who are committed. So I think if we are going to do that kind of, you know, small people sort of coming ad hoc co-design where we might have a session and ask people what colour bench they want, I don't know, as an example, and people can get involved that way. But like if we are looking for committed people to really be involved in the whole journey and the whole process, I think that's a challenge to find people who will give up their time for a long period of time. Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. So do you think there currently that appetite amongst residents exists to have that type of, or that level of involvement?
I don't know. I think the problem is that people generally are only really, and I really don't mean this in the most negative way, but I think people are really only bothered about what happens in their immediate backyard, for example. So I think the challenge is getting people interested in kind of that greater good, wider idea of, you know, doing this will have an effect on everybody that lives in the area, not just because it's, you know, behind your back fence, for example. I think it's very difficult. So if I spoke to somebody who lived, I don't know, 4 streets away from something that we were doing and we tried to get them involved, I think they'd be like, well, that doesn't affect me. Why would I be interested? I think it's that just trying to get people to see the bigger picture. I think that's a challenge as well. I think people are very, you know, only really care about stuff that directly affects them. And for a bunch of reasons, but you know, people are busy, people have other things to worry about. I think that's something else as well. I mean, especially at the moment, I think that trying to, you know, get people really interested in this stuff, when actually a lot of people on Thamesmead are actually just worried about whether they're going to lose their job or whether, you know, how they're going to feed their kids. Or I think they feel, not everybody, but there are people who feel that they have more important things to worry about than this kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. In terms of on an institutional or like organizational level, are there certain recognized institutional benefits and challenges? So, I mean, you kind of touched on some of them before, but I suppose like what do you think is the perceived value of co-design within Peabody? And potentially also perceived costs, so whether those be financial or resource related.
I think for us, the benefits are, I guess, that what I just sort of talked about, really, just about how because if people are interested and feel that they have some power over something, I think for us that actually just makes our job easier in the long run, because I think that, you know, we are, from experience, we've done projects where perhaps we haven't done as much kind of community engagement and much resident involvement as we should have done, and then when we do projects people are actually really unhappy, and then obviously then it's dealing with that as well. You know, if we've done something and people don't like it, then we have to then go back, you know, that is time and money for us, having to look at solutions for things that people are unhappy about, that actually if we'd have kind of got them involved more at the start from the beginning, that wouldn't have happened. So I just guess in terms of, you know, the delivery and how we manage it after we've put a project in, that actually for us it's beneficial for us to really involve people, because then it's easier for us to manage going forward, I think. And also because I just, that whole Peabody ethos is about putting, residents first, and it being all about looking after looking after the most vulnerable and giving the communities what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have to, if we're going to talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. And I think that co-design does that, because it shows that we are committed and we basically are doing what we say we are doing, and that ultimately gives us integrity, and I think that makes people trust us more. So in the long run, building those relationships will ultimately just make us delivering the whole Regen project over the next 30 years much easier, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the perceived, or I think the drawbacks or the difficulties are, so for example, if I'm talking about maybe having quite a committed group that are there from the start, and we're talking about giving them power and transparency over budgets, I think our processes hold us back. How we control money and how things are decided. I think it's not always very straightforward. Sometimes things are complicated. And I think that kind of bureaucracy will make it more difficult for us to really think about how we're going to give over power and how that's going to work in line with kind of Peabody corporate policies and how decision making is done, and how budgets are set. So obviously, I mean, and I'm not that strategic. I don't really, I kind of know, but I'm not at that level where I fully know actually all of those decision making processes. But I do know, but you know what I'm saying. So it's just about how do we, I think those processes are gonna make it really difficult for us. And actually, do we need to start thinking about how we do make decisions, and then it becomes quite a big unraveled problem. So it's like we start having to look corporately at how we make decisions, and then that is a whole nother problem. So I think that will hold us back ultimately, is how decisions are made and how budgets are set, and then how we can actually truly involve residents in that, if we can.
Yeah, and I suppose there's
that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that's perfect. No, actually, it's super interesting. I think it seems to be like kind of a struggle or tension to decide like at which stage of the process it's kind of also most meaningful for residents to get involved, and how do you balance that like valuable experience for the residents with kind of the struggles, the bureaucratic and organizational challenges. So super interesting. In terms of, so I'm also interested in finding out about kind of how we can evaluate the impact that co-design is having when it is being implemented. So I'm wondering if you have any, if you are evaluating impact of co-design in regards of kind of the benefits and costs that you were talking about, and if yes, how you're doing it.
I officially, I don't know. I guess so I can only sort of speak from my own experience, and just anecdotally, I find that the sooner you start conversations with people about projects or changes that you are going to make, the sooner you start those conversations, and the more transparent you are about what you're doing in the most simple ways, when it comes to delivery, you have less problems. I don't know, like I don't know how you could quantify that, but it's just thinking of a project where as I said, I don't think we did nearly enough involvement and kinds of asking residents what they thought, or getting involved at the start. That's created more problems for us in the long run. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of from my experience. I know that the less you give people options or make their decisions for you, or help you to make decisions, the more aggro basically you get when it comes to delivering, or when it comes to it done and then they have to live with it. I don't know, whether, I don't know, in terms